Everybody's doing well. Thank you for clicking on the video. And I promise that today's subject is probably going to shock some of you in the callousness of the subject matter. And if it does, then you gotta hit like on the video. How about that? Y'all want to see what attempted murder looks like in black and white? What it really looks like on paper? I'll show you guys. I should have a shot on the screen right now. And it's just the top half of the shot. I got the bottom of it too if anybody wants me to take a picture of that, in its entirety and post that to the channel as well. But I'm just going to read it straight from the top. And you'll notice that I have, for the most part, most of the person's name and their reg number covered out of respect for their privacy. If they want to, make themselves a channel or, get on TikTok or whatever and share their story with it, that's definitely their prerogative. But I'm not going to make that decision for them. There's some heavy consequences that came from decisions like this. And, some of these guys could still be answering for it. Who knows? I know I had to. I know that it was a serious source of contention through the last half of my sentence. So I'm not going to, make that decision for them. If they want to come forward and, share their story and their part in this attempted murder, they are more than welcome to, but I'm not going to make that decision for them. But it says right here from the very top, it's got my name, my reg number, the date of the incident, 4/18/2016 at 10:45 a.m. Place of incident says the dining room. And then it says incident, assault with serious injuries. And then you go over to the right, prohibited act 101. 101 is just it's literally one shot down from the worst shot that you can get in federal prison, and that's a 100 series shot, and that is murder. So you have murder, and then a 101, which is basically attempted murder, assault with the serious injuries. That's just how they word it, but I'll keep going and you'll see why I call it what it is. You got the CO description of the incident. Says on April 18th 2016 at approximately 10:45 a.m. while feeding the noon meal, I observed his inmates Mosney, Gibson, myself, Chippewa assaulting inmate White with weapons. The inmates were striking inmate White with closed fists and sharpened weapons. I gave the inmates several orders to stop the assault, which they refused to obey. Think about that for a second. You got 4 guys stabbing one individual, and it had to have been going on for some time before enough COs showed up and literally snatched this kid from out between all of us. And then it goes on to say, it says, I placed inmate White on the ground and hand restraints were applied. All inmates were placed in hand restraints and medically assessed. Inmate White was escorted to the outside hospital due to his injuries. The other inmates were placed in administrative detention. No staff injuries were reported. Now, what made me decide to want to talk about this at this point in time is because I was in a comment section somewhere in some video or another, and I had mentioned somebody was, I don't even remember very specifically what the subject was, but what I had to say was relevant to it. And I said that I went to a 23-in-1 program for stabbing somebody up, and I think it had to do with 23-in-1 programs or something like that. And I said that was in a 12-year sentence. And somebody had left a comment under my comment, and they said they found it funny that somebody could get stabbed over 20 plus times and one of the people that are involved would still get out on their original out date. And he said it sounded fishy, were his words exactly. He said it sounds kind of fishy that you could stab somebody 20 plus times and still get out on your original out date. And I told him, you know, I literally, exactly how I word it right now, I told him, I said, your mistake is thinking that they care about your life enough to pursue justice and charge those who hurt you. Like, you have this preconceived notion that if somebody did harm you while you were in their custody, that they would be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, right? To try to, you know, quell, or if not quell, but deter other inmates from doing these same things, right? You'd want people to be getting hit over the head with these lengthy sentences to just keep from everybody from having a free-for-all and stabbing whoever the fuck they wanted to when they wanted to. And you do hear about it, right? You do hear about it. They do crucify somebody once in a great while, and they get sentenced and they get taken out to outside court, and yeah, they do. They get 4, 5, 6, 7 years added on, depending on whatever it is. But those, they're kind of publicity stunts by the BOP. That, you know, once in a great while they'll do that for whatever reason, but it's not consistent. It's not consistent in the slightest. It's actually, it was out of the ordinary when somebody did catch a charge for even having a knife. You know, I've seen that, and you'll get charges if you're in a mediums, lows. You're gonna catch a charge. They will charge you. They'll even charge you for, you know, assaulting somebody with just your fists. But I've been on yards where it was just business as usual for people to stab somebody up and get let out of the fucking shoe within the same week. That was nothing. It was absolutely nothing. People go to the shoe for assaults all the time. And they're out, maybe 30 days tops. That's it. That's all your pain and suffering is worth. If you get booked in there, then they do not care. It is just, the show must go on. They don't have the space to keep everybody in the shoe for however much longer you think they're supposed to sit. They get slapped on the wrist, 30 days. Once in a great while, 60 days. Some good time. A lot of these guys, they don't have any more good time to take. The legal system for whatever local area would just be swamped with nothing but knife shots, drinking shots, assaults, attempted murders, sexual assaults. It would literally be swamped within weeks. Or maybe not weeks, but you get my drift. These things happen on a daily basis, especially at a prison where it's really fucking jumping. Every day something's going down. We don't always get locked down for shit. If it's all in-house, then they don't care. Whoever just got booked within the fucking native car, if they know it's just natives on natives, they're going to the shoe and they're going to get out within a week. It happens all the time, every day. Now, what would have been just some run-of-the-mill shit was if we would have stabbed this kid, they would have shipped him off, and they would have let 2 or 3 of us back out and maybe ship somebody else, you know, because there was 4 of us. What was unusual about that was that we all were immediately put in for SMU, which is the Special Modifications Unit in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Is it Pennsylvania? Lewisburg, West Virginia? I'm not even sure. I ended up doing time in both of those states, so it seems like one and the same to me. But that's what was unusual, was that we booked this kid, and because of the the ferocity with which we carried this out, because of how vicious it was, because we absolutely refused to stop. And I'm talking like four guys all stabbing you at the same time. You know, I stopped stabbing him. I'll be legit. I poked him 5 or 6 times. I poked him 5 or 6 times, and I started seeing how much blood was dripping everywhere. I mean, I distinctly remember squeaking around in the shit, and my fucking shin bones smacked right into the goddamn these welded on stools to the fucking chow tables. Like, that shit hurt. My shit was bruised up. Nothing, compared to what we were doing to this guy. But I stopped stabbing him and just started punching him. I threw my knife, because that everybody was going to have to throw their knives at the end there. Nobody was going to get, that's not what you do. You throw your knife somewhere, maybe a convict's going to pick it up and drop it in the trash or something like that. Or they'll just keep it, But that's not what happened that day. I remember when I went to get on the ground, I threw my knife and I got on the ground, and I saw like 3 or 4 knives come sliding. They came sliding from, further out. Everybody that had spread out to the walls, people that came through chow with their knives on them. Now it's just a free pass to get rid of the knife because everybody's going to get shook down on the way out. I remember sitting in the shoe, and I didn't know if he lived or not. Yeah, it was a couple days. It was a couple days before I got to see him. And they put him right next to me. They put him in the fucking cell right next to me. And I remember him coming in front of my window, and I was standing there and I was looking at him, and I remember he was looking this way. And right here, I seen what was just a see-through plastic seal. Looked like a see-through piece of tape. And it was covering this wide, dark hole. And it had a bunch of blood and bubbles that were, flexing with the tape as he was moving. It was just literally a piece of clear tape holding this man's blood into his neck. We had also popped one of his lungs. At some point in time, I remember somebody telling me that he got hit like 23 or 24 times. But for a couple days there, I did think that we had killed this man. I was like, there's no way he lived through that. Not as much blood that was on the fucking ground. Not when his entire white shirt was beet red. But getting sent to SMU, yeah, it was a little unusual, and it was vicious there. But for the most part, if you have a good cellie, it's kind of a bit of a vacation. I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to worry about anybody other than who was in my cell with me. But unfortunately, if you don't make it out of there within like 18 months, then they refer you to ADX. If you fail SMU, then you got to go to ADX. Well, I guess ADX has to accept you, but you have the potential to get referred up to ADX, and they could accept you depending on how heinous your track record is. But other than that, it was a small inconvenience. It was a small inconvenience to live somewhere that was just ungodly fucking hot. It was insane how fucking hot it was in these small ass cells with a big ass steam pipe running down the fucking corner. And somebody's always getting maced. If somebody's always getting maced, either out at rec or down the tier, if you share the same ventilation system as somebody who gets maced, you're gonna get maced too eventually. You're just gonna sit there, cough, cough, and clear your throat for the next couple of days. And the guards there do force you into situations where you're gonna have to fight. If you get on their bad side, piss them off, mouth off to them, or they just don't like you, they will put somebody in there for you to fight. I had to do it. I had to fight a native Crip by the name Trigger, and he was already beat up. That was fucked up. Not one of my most favorite fights, to be honest, but nah, man, the administration, they don't care. They don't care if you come inside and you get hurt for whatever reasons. It don't matter to them. They're gonna slap somebody on the wrist for hurting you, and they're gonna lock this guy up for a couple months, take away his commissary, take away a couple months of visits, 27 days of good time, and they're gonna be on the compound again. There is no serious there's nothing that they have to scare somebody who is living that convict lifestyle. When you live by the convict lifestyle, you do not give two fucks. If you're in prison, you're in prison. It doesn't matter if it's out here or just another part of the prison. It's all the same. Our out date is still the same. And we really got to go above and fucking beyond to get some more time. Especially if you're living in the USPs. The USPs, people get beat up, stabbed, and fucking stomped out and almost murdered all the fucking time. All the time. It's only once in a great while that you see somebody actually get charges for it. Things that are so bad that the public hears about it, and they really kind of have to. They really have to at that point. But me and my guys, all we did is we got sent to SMU, which was kind of bad in itself because not everybody came out of there unscathed. Not everybody came out of there unscathed. Prison is just, it's messed up. It doesn't matter if you are the most stand-up, righteous, quiet dude, or if you're the most loudest, meanest, scary looking motherfucker. It doesn't matter. It's a crapshoot. It's an absolute fucking crapshoot. You will never know what situation may arise where you will find yourself in the crosshairs for any reason at all. I did what I had to do to this cat because his organization was telling him, you can't let that ride. You can't let this guy get away with putting hands on one of our guys at the previous prison. That's why this had to take place. He was supposed to do something about it. And that's because I know their politics. I wasn't there for the actual conversations or anything like that, but I knew that if I was smart, I would expect something from him. And the entire time that I was in Beaumont, I'll be the first to admit right now, I acted like I was nobody. I acted like a straight fucking bitch. I'm dead serious. I was quiet. I didn't say shit. I was in the fucking drug program. I was in the drug program unit. That in itself was already just a bad look. But I had came from Atwater, and he had homeboys that was giving him information, and then basically he told me he knew all about me already. And I was like, well, that's good. Then you'll know that when I say to leave me alone until after I figure out what's up with this fucking 2-point reduction, I mean it. Don't call on me on no dumb shit. I'm not. I'm not a rookie. You know, I'm not a rookie here. But I knew that honor and respect was going to make him a problem for me. And I watched. And I had eyes and ears out there because, regardless of how I was carrying myself, people ended up warming up to me. People did end up warming up to me enough that more and more people started coming over to our units, the drug program units. And it was me and a handful of other guys that stood up for ourselves that made it okay, to be honest with you. We made it okay to want to go home. But we had all these different cats and all the other units that were too hard for the yard. Mr. USPs, right? They'd been there, they were the longest, they had been there longer than anybody else, and for a lot of them, this was their first USP. And they didn't like the fact that every time they tried to start something that would benefit them and put those who wanted to live in the drug programs at a disadvantage, I wasn't letting that shit fly. Like, they were trying to basically extort people who wanted to be in the drug programs, who were supposed to be given a pass from putting in work. You know, when I got there, they had already had issues with everybody that was in the drug programs. But they had already said that if you were going to go to the drug programs, cool, you don't have a voice. You can come to the meetings, but you don't have a voice. And that flew when there was only like 3 or 4 guys in that whole unit. That was okay then. Hell, I might have even been okay with that if I wasn't in the drug program. But now there was an issue. You had half the native population in the fucking drug programs. And then they were like, all right, cool. Well, if all of you are so cool with being in the drug programs, then maybe y'all need to start paying. Or maybe you need to start giving up your issue. You know, our Sunday issue, our cup of tobacco. Maybe you guys need to start paying us to not call your name for drama that we start and ultimately should be handling ourselves. We bumped heads. We bumped heads because I had smashed one of his big homies out of his leadership position in Atwater. That's why that happened. And I've already told that story. Yeah. So it was just a matter of time. But I did. I kept my head down. And I tried to play the quiet, don't want no problems. I did. I tried to be real humble. I heard about shit they were talking. I had heard that they were talking about getting rid of me. I heard that they were asking around about any of my dealings, you know, any of my debts, any of my drug dealings, anything. Anybody who got tattoo work for me that wasn't happy, they were checking up on me. All this stuff happened over the whole course of a year, and he just wasn't able to. But on the contrary, I was able to spin it around. As much as he didn't like it, the majority ruled, and they decided that 2 people would have the yard. They would share co-leadership. And they voted for him and they voted for me. And that made his job 10 times harder when it came to figuring out how he was going to get at me. And I guess it just wasn't in him to just run up in the unit with a couple of guys and just smash me and just be damned with the consequences, right? That's what a lot of other guys would have done. If you were really trying, you know, if you were really supposed to get your guy, that's what you would do. But instead, He caught himself pussyfooting around for too goddamn long, trying to make it a majority vote thing where he could then use two youngsters who haven't put in work yet and send them after me and keep his hands clean. Because that's how a boss would do it, right? That's how a shot caller would do it. It just didn't work out like that for him. And he lost at his own game. Politics, politicking. It's a thinker's game, man. It really is. And it backfired on him. And he caught himself in the same trap that he was trying to catch me up in. Now his whole crew did buck on me, because he was dead. He was straight up dead to rights, caught in the wrong, and we had a majority vote that said that he needed to go. But I would also need his unit, everybody who's standing on the yard with him on that side of the fence, to do it. But I knew that they weren't going to be able to do it because he was already recruiting. He was Native Mob, and he was already recruiting guys into Native Mob. So they would have to beat his ass for their part in being a part of the circle on Beaumont USP. But now they have more obligations, probably even, like, I don't know what obligation comes first. Now it's either obligations to the circle or it's obligations to this gang that you heard of for the first time here, all the way from Minnesota. So they bucked on me and they said, "No, we're not gonna do it. We'll see you in the chow hall." I wasn't the one who picked the chow hall, but I definitely was gonna see him in the chow hall. And the entire time, since it happened, all I could do is think they didn't think I was going to do anything. I didn't know it was going to go down like that. Because I was then left in a position where I had to ask, I said, "Hey, this is this is probably going to be bad. You got, at the very least, 8, 9 guys that are going to get this guy's back." I was like, are any of you willing to volunteer to come with me to make sure that this motherfucker goes down? And I had 3 guys step forward. I had another one, but he was short, he was young. I was like, "Nah, kick rocks, get out of here." So, step back into the circle. I took 3 of them with me, and all they were supposed to do is protect me. That was it. Watch my back while I get my guy. But it didn't go down like that. They left him hanging. They left their fucking fearless leader hanging. They left him out to dry. Not one of them moved a fucking muscle on behalf of him. And the rest of my guys, I mean, their heart rate's up, their adrenaline is going, that shit's just dumped right into their fucking bloodstream. They already pulled a knife out. And these guys, they're real gangsters. Every single one of them, real gangsters. You don't pull it out unless you're going to use it. They pulled it out, they turned around, they made use of it against the guy who started all this shit to begin with. And he got stabbed. And we all got sent to SMU. And we all got out about the same time. I even ran into Gibson again in Canaan USP. And in Canaan USP, he actually ended up taking the leadership position for the Reggie Natives on fucking Canaan. Why? Because he was older and he had just came from SMU. And everybody thought that was, that was the bee's knees as far as somebody who should be capable of, holding that position. He ended up getting smashed. They ended up fucking booking him. He made some bad choices, probably had some drug debts. He was all about running up some bills when he was with me, and Beaumont, he was all about running up some drug debts. They should have never gave him the yard, but they didn't know about that. And I was with Warrior Society, so I'm not allowed to really speak on their politics. If that's how he, presented himself, and they fall for it, that's on them. But he paid the price for that. But I got a little far away from the moral of the story again. I tried to keep my head down. I tried to be cool. I turned the other cheek. I didn't jump at everything that I had heard. But somebody's going to push you. Somebody is going to push and push and push. And you can only run from shit for so long. Because believe me, I didn't want to have to do that. I really didn't. But at that point, I was kind of like, fuck it, you know. If like that was the last real barrier that I had to really convincing myself that I could do this life, that I was good at it. If I was willing to take a life, to literally step forward and try to kill somebody and sleep that same night like a baby, then yeah, I convinced myself I fucking belonged in prison. There's some of us that are meant to actually be locked up because this is what we do. We were born out of our era. You know, I know I'm not the only one that feels like that. I do believe that I was born out of my era because that shit does come to you too easily. But I don't carry myself like the conventional convict, right? I'm quiet. I'm the last one to speak. I'm not the loudest. I don't have to be heard. I don't have to be liked. I don't even have to be around the rest of them. I am just always going to do my own thing. But at some point in time, it is kind of inevitable. Guys gravitate towards me. And I found myself in those positions where I was standing up for the majority a few times. And I have found that if you, if you are somebody that just wants to stand on what's fair and be a righteous person, you're going to have all the problems you're going to need for your entire sentence. There's some guys that will say that they did 10 years and didn't have to fight one time. And my thoughts to myself are like, nah, man, there's some times that you definitely swallowed your fucking pride. There's definitely some times where you bit the bullet when you should have started swinging. I don't have any situations like that. Every situation that ever approached me, I did what I thought I had to do to live with myself. If it wasn't just to live, literally. There's more than enough people in there on some bullshit. People can get randomly hurt. Doesn't even matter. You could just be the person that's walking by somebody when they decide, fuck it, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to try to go to ADX. They got a life sentence. They're never going home. And they'll just book somebody, just a passing stranger. Somebody they got no problem with at all. You just happen to be that person. You could get SA'd by the next cellie you get and have to fight for your life. I've seen that. I have literally seen that. It's something that I will never forget. I will never forget it. It happened in a cell right across from me to a kid that did not run with the white boys. They left him alone. He was harmless. Walked around doing raffles, selling cards that he drew. But the white boys in Beaumont said he's taken up a spot. He's taken up a spot that a real soldier, a real wood, could be taking. And they ran him up top. And who did he get put in a cell with? Some lifer rapist, Nazi. I remember he had something tattooed across his forehead. It could have said Nazi, it could have said racist, it could have said murderer. I don't know. It was something real crazy. It was something just like, shock value type shit right across his forehead. But everybody knew. Everybody knew that dude was fucking crazy, and he had life, and he had AIDS. And they put this kid in there with him who didn't bug nobody, he didn't cause nobody any problems, but he wasn't hard enough. He didn't rock the boat ever. It was a bad look. He was short. He had years to do. He got put in the cell with this guy and found himself fighting for his life over the course of a couple days. He was getting choked out every time that he knew the CO would come by. He was getting choked out unconscious. I couldn't even tell you how many times they must have passed by, and I'm thinking, like, what are they seeing? How are they not knowing what's going on in there? Why is this kid not, doing something in front of them when they're coming by for count or something? Why is this guy not waking up with both his fucking eyes snatched out of his fucking skull? Like, what are you doing? It took him days. It took him fucking days before he got the strength and the courage to do something while a guard was passing. And then it ended. I'll never forget it, though. The way he was standing, cuffed behind his back, with nothing but a shirt and briefs on. And he was this little skinny guy. Both legs were just shaking. And his underwear was stained with all types of fluids. And guys were yelling on the tier. They were like, "Hey, you got that real deal package now, right?" And the kid was like, "No, like he wasn't trying to hear it." They're like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, man, but you got it. You have to have it. How do you not?" And the kid yelled this on the fucking tier. He was like, "No, I don't have it because he never nutted into me. He always pulled out." What? I had Chippewa for a fucking celly, and we were both, for after this happened, I mean, we could both be doing our own thing. This was like 2 or 3 days later. This was happening. I'd be sitting up on my bed and I'd be reading my book, and Chippewa would be down there in front of the fucking mirror, flexing and stuff and playing with his hair. And then he'd get quiet and he'd be like, "Damn, that's fucked up, man." And I'd be like, "Right, man?" Like, we were both fucking thinking about it. And anytime it got too quiet and we both got fucking, started thinking back in our thoughts, one of us would say, "Man, that's some fucked up shit, man." Or fucking Chippewa would quote him out of nowhere. He'd be pacing for like an hour in dead silence, and he'd be standing there looking out the window, and then he'd be like, "He didn't nut in me." And we'd both just crack up laughing because it's like, what the fuck, man? This kid's life is ruined. Absolutely ruined. And what do you think they did to that guy? What can they do? Nothing. Take his commissary away? Put him in the shoe for another 30 days? Add another 5 years onto the fucking sentence that he already doesn't give a fuck about? Shit like that Blood is being shed every day. Every day on every compound. It is being shed for reasons that seem very trivial out here. Respect, stamps, soups, scuffing my shoe, looking at me crazy. But I remember coming from the FCIs and then going to Atwater and seeing all these bros were so quick to want to stab somebody up because everybody was getting stabbed there, and they would go into the shoe for a week and come back out. And I was like, oh, damn, you guys ain't catching charges here for that shit? And they're like, no. And I was like, oh, cool. Now I can do it too and not worry about getting more time, because I didn't want more time. I really didn't. I understood I was going to lose all my good time and all that. I had my mind set on doing my whole sentence. I didn't care about, halfway house, good time, none of that shit. I just worried about surviving with the men that I was locked in here with. That's all I gave a fuck about. What did they think? Because they're the ones who can get me hurt.